Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the course of communication skills. This is lecture number 28 and the topic for today's lesson is letter writing. I'm your teacher Muhammad Asif Khan, lecturer, Department of English, Kohat University of Science and Technology. Outline for today's discussion is that first of all I will define letter writing, and then we will look at the importance of letter writing in our daily life. We will also study the characteristics of a good letter. It will be followed by the study of basic types of letter writing. I will also tell you about the parts of a letter. In this way, we will study the journal structure of a formal letter, and this lesson also includes the journal styles or journal formats of a formal letters. And in the end of this letter, I will provide you the journal format of an application. So this is the outline of today's discussion. Let's start with the definition of letter writing. Basically, a letter is an exchange of written or printed communication, and we see that a letter is a written message that can be handwritten or printed on a paper. We can define letter in another way, that a letter is a written message conveyed from one person to another person, or from one organization to another organization through a medium. Basically, we write a letter to persons who are far away from us, and we want to convey our message to them in a clear and a forceful manner. So letter is usually sent to the recipient via mail or post in an envelope, although this is not a necessary thing, or it is not the requirement. We see that sometimes letters are sent to the people who are not living that much far away from you, but for the official correspondence you send them letters, and sometimes we see that these letters are not posted via mail or some post, and they are not put into envelopes, and open letters are being forwarded to the people. But overall we see that it is a written message, basically conveyed from one person to another person, or from one organization to another organization. Nowadays we have another type of written messages, and that is email. Emails are the messages distributed by electronic means from one computer user to one or more recipients via network. So here again we see that message is being conveyed from one person to another person, but the medium is different. In normal letter writing we see that handwritten or printed material is sent via post or mail or by hand, but emails are special messages which are distributed by electronic means. And for that purpose, most of the time we see computers are being used, but nowadays in modern world we see that mobiles are being used to send emails. So this is the definition of a letter writing. And now let's move and study the importance of letter writing. We see that letter writing is very effective way of communication, and different types of letters presents different requirements of effective communication, as we see that in private letters, which are basically the representation of our personality, and these letters represents our relationship within our close circles. So in these letters, what we do in these private letters, we express our personal feelings, thoughts or experiences. On the other hand, there are official and business letters, and basically these letters symbolize our competence. These letters are helpful in establishing good business relations, and we see that these letters are used to exchange official informations. So when you are exchanging these informations through letter, it constitutes an official and legal record of your communication. So on one hand, these letters are representative of our personality, and these letters represent the relationship with our close circles. On the other hand, we see that these letters are an official and legal record of our communication. So these letters, which are very important, and a good letter or an effective letter establishes good business relationship, and it expresses true feelings and thoughts of that individual. For that, it is very necessary that we keep in our mind the characteristics which turn a letter into an effective letter. And the first characteristic of this effective writing is clearness. And as we see that a letter is written with a definite objectives, the achievement of such objectives depends upon the effectiveness of the letter. So the effort of letter writing is meaningless if the matter of the letter is not clear to the reader. In order to make it clear to the reader, it should be drafted by using simple, short, sweet words and sentences. The intention of the writer can be understood by the reader only and only when the letter is written clearly. The second important quality of a good letter is correctness. The clearness of the letter depends on its correctness. The letter should be correct in terms of language and information. The writer should draft the letter by using correct spellings, words, correct grammatical structures, correct words, correct sentences, and giving the correct information, data and figures to the receiver. So in this way, he can create a positive impression on the reader. Now let's see the third important characteristic of a good letter, and that is completeness. A letter should be concise, but it should be complete. On the one hand, a letter should be concise, and on the other hand, it should be complete. If the letter includes all the information that the reader wants, then it is a complete letter. But we see that an incomplete letter adds confusion, wastes time, money and efforts. So completeness of the letter is very necessary. The fourth characteristic of a good letter is conciseness. As I told you earlier, that a letter should be concise. So it is the duty of a letter writer that he should keep it as short as possible, and the writer should never write more than what makes the meaning of letter clear to the reader. The fifth quality of a good letter is attractiveness. It is that quality in which the writer keeps the appearance of the letter attractive. The proper document design plays a very important role to make the letter attractive. So one thing I want to tell you is that you should fold the letter properly and put it in the right size of envelope. It will make a very good impression on the reader of that letter. The sixth quality of a good letter is coherence. Effectiveness of a letter depends to a great extent on its coherence or the unity. Here I will tell you that what is coherence. Coherence means writing the matter of the letter in a sequential manner. One information should be followed by other information in a sequence. So that is very important, that you keep coherence and unity of the letter to the true sense. Another characteristic of a good letter is courtesy. I want to suggest you that you should write a letter in such a way that you pay due respect to the feelings of the reader. So courtesy or politeness is very important, and it helps in increasing goodwill and maintaining good relations. The eighth characteristic of good letter writing is creativeness, and I tell you that only creative and original letter writing helps in impressing and convincing the readers. The ninth and the last characteristic of a good letter is effectiveness, and an effective letter is one which achieves its objectives. It impels the receiver to do just what the writer wants. If the letter possesses all these qualities which we discussed above, it is regarded as an effective letter, and it fulfills the purpose of its writing. Now let's move towards the basic types of letters, and broadly there are two types of letters: informal letters and formal letters. There are also a few other types of letters that are based on the contents, formalities, and the purpose of letter writing, and I'm just giving you the list of these few types, and this is just a short list, and we can add many other types of letters to this list. And these types of letters are business letters, official letters, social letters, circulars, employment letters, and many other type of letters are there. Now I am giving you the definition of an informal letter. An informal letter is a letter that is written to a friend, a family member, or an acquaintance. These letters are also known as personal letters, and we can divide these very informal letters into many other types according to the content or purpose of the letter, and these types are like apologies, complaints, invitations, or offering condolence or appreciations, and thank you letters. So these are informal letters which we often write to a friend or a family member or the person whom we know. But the basic definition of an informal letter is that it is the letter in which you are expressing your personal feelings, whereas a formal letter is a letter written in formal language and in the stipulated format. These letters are often used for official correspondence. So we can divide formal letters according to the content, format, or the purpose of formal letters into many types, like covering letters, resumes, follow-up letters, or many other type of letters can be included into the formal letters. So here I told you that there are broadly two types of letters: informal and formal letters. Informal letters are for friends and family members, and formal letters are for the official correspondence or business correspondence. Now let's move towards the parts or structure of a letter. There are minor differences between the structures of different types of letters, but we can draw a general outline of the parts of informal and formal letters. Informal letters have headings, salutations, body, closing remarks or complimentary remarks, and signatures. Whereas formal letters have letterheads, which are also named as headings. It includes dates, and then we have address of the receiver. It also includes a reference section in which if you have the details of the correspondence with that person, you can add the reference numbers there. Here you can add the title or the subject of the letter. Salutation is also there, and then we have the body of that letter. In the end we have complimentary closing remarks and signatures. So these are the parts or structure of a letter. Now let's see a journal structure of a formal letter. The journal structure of a formal letter is that first of all we write down the heading, and we see that most professional business correspondence is printed on a letterhead templates, and a letterhead is that part, as I highlighted here, that contains the company's name, address, contact information. That includes telephone number, email or fax number. We can also add reference number here if we have any, and in the end we add date below that heading side, and all this information is from the writer of the letter. Then comes the second part of a letter, and that is address of the receiver. The first line in the address of the recipient should include the recipient's name and title, and the second line should state the recipient's company or business or the position or that address where he is serving, and the third and the fourth lines are designated for the actual address. For example, this company or this institute is situated in some part of the city. You have to write down the street number and exact name of the road and the city. So all these details are included in this part of the letter where you are writing the address of the recipient. Then comes the salutation. Dear students, different circumstances determines that which salutation or greeting is most appropriate. Commonly we use dear when the recipient's name or title is known to us. For example, dear Mr. Irfan or dear sales director. When the name or the title is unknown, we use sir, madam, respected sir, respected madam, or we can write his designation. But it totally depends upon the circumstances or the situation that to whom you are writing. Then comes the body of that letter, and it is the longest part of letter, which is usually divided into three subcategories. And the first category is introduction, and the second subdivision of this body is main content, and the last part is summary. So the introductory paragraph states the purpose of the letter, and the second paragraph, that is the main contents. These main contents convey all the necessary detailed information and has no set length requirements. You can keep it short or even you can extend it, but it depends upon the situation that how much information or the details are necessary here. The last paragraph summarizes the information provided in the first two paragraphs. So in the summary paragraph, you are just summarizing all the information, or you restate the letter intent and offers either instructions or inquiry regarding the follow-up correspondence. Then comes the complimentary close. Complimentary close is a word or a short phrase that basically means goodbye. Yours sincerely is the most common closing remark. Sometimes we include cordially, best wishes, best regards, and many others are there. But the complimentary close can vary in degrees of formality and is dependent upon the relationship between the sender and the recipient. The last part of this letter is signature, and when a letter is mailed, faxed, or hand delivered, there should be a large enough space below the closing and above the typed name or the written name and title for the sender to provide her written signatures. And if he is sending an email, then it is enough to write down the name and title below the complimentary close. So that is the structure of a formal letter. when we are writing informal letter, we can skip some of the details, but most of the things are there. You have to write down your heading. Inside address of the receiver is not needed. Salutation is often very simple because the person to whom you are writing that letter is known to you, and you write down dear friend or dear and include the name of that person. Body of that letter is approximately same. You start that letter with the simple details about the last correspondence, and then you come to the main content of that very discussion. So complimentary closing is also there, and even you write down your name in the end of informal letters. Now let's move towards some of the styles of formal letters. There are three main styles of formal letters. The first one is block format, and the second one is semi-block format, and the last one is modified block format. So the block format is a style when all the components of the letter are aligned at the left margin of that letter. Side, top and bottom margins should be 1 to 1.25 inches, and font should be 12 in Time New Romans. So that very style is called block style. I will repeat some of the details here. That block style is that style of formal letter when all the components of the letter are aligned at the left margin. And we see that side, top and bottom margins should be 1 to 1.25 inches. Font size should be 12 in Time New Roman. So now let's move towards semi-block style. Semi-block style is that format of the official letter or a formal letter in which all the information is aligned to the left margin except the sender's details and the complimentary clause and the signature of that very letter. Paragraphs are separated by double or triple spacing. Now let's move towards the modified block style. In modified block style, we see that usually all text aligned to the left margin except the sender's address, date and the complimentary closing. All paragraphs we write in modified blocks are not indented. In the semi-block style, we saw that the paragraphs are indented, but here we see that in modified block style, the paragraphs are not indented. The author's address, date and closing begin at the right, and we see that the rest of the text align to the left margin. So that is a modified block style. Here I want to tell you that each of these formats or styles are written in much the same way, including the same information, but the layout varies slightly for each one. So you should know that which style or the format is being followed by that organization. If you will follow that, it will help you to establish good relation with them, because it will be very easy to win their goodwill. Now let's move towards the last part, and in this part I am going to provide you the journal format of an application, and here you will see a journal application which we often write to the government officials. In the first part we see that we have to add the receiver's address. It starts with the recipient's designation, then we add the organization's address, and in the end we put the name of the city. After that comes the salutation. You have to determine the salutation or the greeting according to the circumstances, and whatever you think is appropriate, you add that very salutation there. After that we have the body of application. Here you can follow the rules of letter writing, in which we start by introductory paragraph, then you can add the main content for which you are writing this application, and then summarize the whole application and ask for the thing for which you have written that application. And in the end we see that there is the complementary closing and the sender's details. And here it is different from the letter, because in the letters we see that the writer of the letter is providing his necessary details in the top right corner in the very beginning of the letter. But here he is putting all these details after the complementary closing, and application ends with the date, because date is very necessary, and it is the proof that you have contacted that person to whom you are writing that application, so that he can take action on that application within the due time. So that is the whole discussion about letter writing. I hope that you will be having now sufficient information about letter writing. Thank you very much for listening passionately. Thank you very much.